love it.
Back in the first Tony Hawktober special in 2017, we ended the week with the Birdman's Downhill Jam racing game. It was okay, if a little mediocre. Also, I survived my own downhill jam that day, no biggie.
So, it seemed only fitting to return to the same place this year to take a look at Downhill Jam on the Nintendo DS. But unlike all of the other games we've seen the past few episodes, the console version that we've looked at previously is actually the dirty port of this game, with the Nintendo DS version being the original. So I get the feeling that I'm going to experience that memory-altering effect I've talked about in the past playing through this, and witness my nostalgic childhood memories flash before my very eyes.
The main career mode on the DS version is both similar and still quite different from the downhill challenge we saw on console. Starting off in the Skateland warehouse immediately following the events of the previous game, Tony takes us to San Francisco to begin his new racing tour. We bump into an old rival of Tony Hawk's, Antonio Seagull, real fucking funny, and his band of rad 80s skaters. So we set off around the globe to recruit our own team ready for the final showdown. We build our skater with a bit more flexibility this time around, create our deck and begin playing challenges. It's nice that we can just jump straight in and get started versus the clunky and unresponsive structure of the console version with loading screens constantly harassing you. Instead, you press the button and boom, you're playing. Challenges are limited to each location until you unlock the next one, making progression a little more linear and giving it some focus, but also stripping away variety to a certain extent. A lot of these different goals are much what you'd expect: races, slaloms, distance challenges, collecting items, and doing special tricks, so there is a distinct amount of simpler, brief objectives that also help to prevent the levels growing too tiresome. As you complete these, you can unlock the medal objectives which allow you to recruit some of the new skaters and advance to the next area. The cast of characters is different than on consoles and are all cartoony once again, but they really don't do much for me. There is DJ Darkslide, the Viking, the Karate Girl, Pretty Girl, and the big brutish bloke, but they just don't have the same level of character as Mackenzie, Crash, Ammon, or Gunner for example. Even though I said all of those were kind of weak, one-dimensional characters, at least they had characters. But otherwise, everything else here is up to scratch. Fun comic-style cutscenes similar to Skateland, much of the awesome soundtrack is present, presentation itself is good, and despite some minor changes, all of the levels are still really fun to race through. Edinburgh and Rio have probably suffered the most from changes, but they still feel like their definitive console counterparts. The DS version actually included some different levels though, like Kilimanjaro, which would replace the Alps course. It's just as fun, and I really like the small details here. When you're on snow, you actually have a snowboard, and then once you hit the rough, rocky terrain, it swaps out for a mountain board. Even though this is a purely aesthetic difference, it's the attention to these little details that show care was given to this game. Great job from Vicarious Visions once again. Even better than that though, is the final course being Downhill Jam from the first Pro Skater game. I mean, it's only the inspiration for this entire thing, so I'm glad that in all its simplicity, it was included here. And it even has some additional landmarks, like this cool don't look down grind towards the end of the course. By winning the tournament, we're thrown a cool party with Seagull serving up some radical hors d'oeuvres in the Skateland warehouse, and that does it.
The story mode didn't last as long as I would have hoped, with only 6 levels and many quick challenges, but was still fun to play with a steady curve of difficulty. But I've not had my fill of downhill action just yet, so let's take a quick look at Jam Session mode.
These are classic pro skater goals within the downhill courses, which was never a mix that worked all that well, I think it's safe to say. Sure, there are plenty of fun downhill courses across the series, but especially in the earlier days, they could be quite awkward for this round-based format. So what in the hell did Downhill Jam do so differently to make a really fun classic mode? I'm not kidding, it just works so well here, and it's a lot of fun playing through these levels over again with a different format. The only problem though, can you guess? It's too damn short. It's also unrewarding doing all of this stuff to unlock cheat codes and creation items that really don't compare to other entries in the series. I understand that we're on a portable system here, but these DS games really seem to lack in the additional post-game content that even some of the GBA titles tried to make an effort with. Still, this was a lot of fun to play through for the simplicity and smoothness alone. As much as the console version is a game that I enjoy playing, I always immediately regret putting it in my PS2 once those load times kick in. And to be honest with ourselves, that's probably the biggest difference between the versions, because otherwise, they're quite similar when it's all said and done. Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam on DS gets 5 out of 10. It's a shame that the console version has a lot more content to get into, which is locked behind extensive loading. But probably my biggest piss off with that, aside from the load times, is the fact that there is no single player free skate mode on consoles. So the only way to play maps on your own or with any different characters is to play through the career mode over again, which really sucks. But hang on a minute, the DS version gets it right. You can actually free skate any level whenever you please. So Downhill Jam on DS gets 6 out of 10.
Alright, fuck it. Here's a positive score for a change. While it is a somewhat weak 6, it is still a 6. Accessibility to fun content is incredibly important to get right. So, you dodged a bullet, you lucky bastard. So, let's see if the Game Boy Advance version can dodge one too. And given the abysmal run of GBA games this series has seen post-Pro Skater, I'm not looking forward to it. I mean, how can they possibly put this onto this? Well, I guess there's only one way to find out. And it's a very painful way.
Developed by Visual Impact Productions and released alongside the DS version, we're greeted with some damn funky music. Thankfully, there is no licensed tracks being destroyed in this game, as it's back to original tunes, all of which sound really good, I might add. Birdman explains that he's found the world's top downhill skaters, and now we need to travel to each area and defeat them to become the champion. So again, different yet still familiar narrative. Then we get to create our skater. Fucking why? It's so bare bones pathetic at this point, it may as well not even be here. Whatever, let's just race. What is this? We actually have a 3D Tony Hawk game on the Advance.
Now that really is advance.
Granted, it's all untextured polygons and a draw distance to rival Silent Hill, but still, how cool is this? Honestly, I'm kind of shocked. I was expecting something that better resembled the first Pro Skater game on the Color, but no! Instead, it's this enlightening example of just how far these games have come. I'm sure it's easy for a lot of people to immediately discredit this game because of how it looks, along with the control being quite heavy and stiff, with weird anti-gravity air physics on top of the stuttering draw distance. But just because this is obviously the weakest version of this game, that doesn't automatically warrant shitting all over it. And to be honest, it's actually quite fun. We get the standard challenges within each level, earning cash to spend on upgrading our stats, and then once you win the challenge race and defeat the course champion, you earn their board and move on to the next area. And there are actually 10 levels in this game, all pretty decent levels too. For the levels that we see in other versions, there are obviously going to be some differences, but they still manage to capture some of the more important landmarks. But we also get some exclusive levels here. A few aren't that great, but all of them still stand pretty close to the much stronger versions of this game. I can't help but admit, I am very impressed here. Who would have thought that this little powerhouse could turn the Tony Hawk GBA lineup around? Now, having said all of that, this still is not some hidden gem, I'm sad to say. The challenges within each level are far too easy for one. We have 3 difficulty levels of Score Challenge, 3 levels of Classic Goals, and the primary championship race. The scores we need to hit are way too low to offer any challenge at all, especially with the wonky air physics that let you rack up points like crazy. And to be honest, some of these can be completed in the first couple seconds of a race. But the game doesn't stop when you complete it, so you have to keep playing until the end of the map, which gets incredibly repetitive. Why can't it just end once I've completed the goal? Because the game would be over in half an hour, that's why. Then the classic goals are okay, but again, don't do much for challenge. If it weren't for needing to level up your stats to even stay close to the other races, you probably wouldn't even need to play these other modes. In fact, dominant strategy suggests to just keep grinding and keep spinning in the air so that you can continuously boost the entire way through each course. Instant fucking success. There is nothing else to it really, which is disappointing in the end. However, I really don't want the negatives to overshadow what is such a strong effort to capture the fun, arcade-style gameplay that is what makes these racing games so fun. Downhill Jam on GBA gets 3 out of 10.
Please don't shit on this game. I know it's nothing special at all, but the effort to make a 3D Tony Hawk game on this system is incredibly admirable, and I honestly believe that they succeeded. I really do. However, this also marks the final Tony Hawk game to appear on the Game Boy Advance.
It was a solid run, starting with the Color that peaked with the portable Pro Skater titles, but some questionable experimentation and the rapid decline in even giving a fuck about the games really tarnished the franchise's legacy on this system.
Well, that's the first week of Tony Hawktober 2019 over and done with. But don't worry, because we still have another full jam-packed week of skateboard action to come. So be sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you haven't already, so that you never miss a thing. Also, don't forget to share these videos with your friends and on social media, which is a really great way to help me out and support the channel. But if you just can't wait until next week for more Hawktober, then consider pledging on Patreon to unlock exclusive content and early access to every new video, including next week's Hawktober episodes. They're already available right now. It's only thanks to all of the amazing people already pledged that makes this special and this entire channel even possible. So thank you all so much. Alternatively, you can now pick up some radical Hawktober merch and rep the hottest channel special of the year by clicking the link on screen or below this video. Yes, I'm plugging everything in this episode. I don't care. Early access patrons get a 10% discount, and it's another great way to support what I'm doing here if you think I've earned it. So thank you all so much for joining me for the first week of Tony Hawktober 2019, and until next week, I'm Square-Eyed Jack, and I hope you have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching.